So, good evening to everyone. I'd like to go ahead and start our study session. And I have a little announcement to make. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with State of California Executive Order N-29-20 dated March 17, 2020. All members of the City Council are participating in this meeting by video conference with no physical meeting location. Members of the public wishing to observe the meeting live may do so at mountainview.legistar.com, on YouTube at mountainview.gov/YouTube, and on Comcast Channel 26. As noted on the meeting agenda, members of the public may provide oral public comments during the public comment period for an item by signing up at mountainview.gov/cc_speakers. Any emails and voicemail messages received by 5 p.m. today were forwarded to the City Council. Emails received after 5 p.m. and prior to the close of the public comment period for the agenda item will be read into the record by the City Clerk, and any voicemail messages received will be played by the City Clerk. Now I will ask the City Clerk to proceed with roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Hicks. Councilmember Matichek.
Here.
Councilmember McAllister appears to be absent. Councilmember Ramirez. Vice Mayor Kamei.
Here.
Mayor Abikoga.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we go to item 3 of study session, 3.1, the Shoreline Boulevard at Highway 101 Bicycle and Pedestrian Bridge Project 16-60, the preliminary conceptual design. And we will start with our staff presentation.
Hi everyone. I'm going to be sharing my screen. Can everybody see the screen? All right. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. My name is Tina Singh, Senior Civil Engineer with the Public Works Department. Lisa Al and I are here tonight to present the preliminary conceptual design for the Shoreline Boulevard at Highway 101 Bicycle Pedestrian Bridge Project. The design consultant, Navaj Khan, and us will be available to answer questions at the end of the presentation. These 3 planning documents provide the design concept for an integrated transit, bicycle, and pedestrian improvements along the shoreline corridor between downtown transit center and the North Bay Shore area. This is a visual representation of the long-term transportation improvement between the downtown transit center to the left and the North Bay Shore area to your right. As you can see, the highlighted yellow line is the bicycle and pedestrian overcrossing. This is an important link for the active transportation in the area. The bicycle pedestrian overcrossing developed as in the Shoreline Corridor study is the off-road two-way cycle track between Terra Avenue and Pear Avenue. The 20 feet wide travel lane is to provide adequate biking and walking environment for all users. The design team followed these parameters to design a functional and physically responsible overcrossing that connects to planned and existing networks, improve intermodal traffic, meets Caltrans requirements, while minimizing right-of-way impacts. The overall bridge structure includes 3 distinct components as shown in the figure: Terra Approach, Shoreline Overcrossing, and Pear Approach. Each component has unique surroundings and land use, which are the key factors in determining appropriate improvements and structural types. Tonight's goal is to present preliminary layouts for each component and obtain direction from the City Council in form of 3 key questions before the design continues. Please note the rendering to be shown are sample layout for illustration and discussion. Now I will begin these components by introducing Terra Approach. The Terra approach begins at the Terra and Shoreline intersection. The two-way off-street cycle track and walkway leading to the bridge to the right of your screen is along the west side of Shoreline Boulevard. User of the proposed bridge can enter and exit at this intersection. Bicyclists and pedestrians have the option to use the existing on-street bike lane and sidewalk along Shoreline Boulevard, as these facility will remain. The Terra area is generally designated for industrial use. The recommended improvements are to enhance biking and walking surroundings by creating distinct on-surface color treatment by separating user types, installing street tree, landscaping, and lighting. This brings us to the first question tonight, whether the City Council support the recommended concept as presented. Please note that all three questions will be listed again at the end of the presentation. The Shoreline Overcrossing is the main bridge span structure. It is parallel and to the rest of the existing Shoreline Boulevard overpass. Due to its location, the view of the bridge from 101 is limited. The bridge view is blocked by the Shoreline Boulevard overpass to the south and the old Middlefield will flyover to the north. The view of the proposed bridge is only available after passing the flyover on southbound 101. Due to the visibility constraints, staff recommends a standard concrete box girder structure. The next two renderings illustrate various opportunities for above-the-deck feature may enhance the bridge aesthetically. This is the bridge view, illustrating a collage of railing, fencing, lighting opportunities. Public art can also be incorporated in the railing or the fence mesh or the walking biking surface. The next three slides are local standard concrete box girder examples. Oh, excuse me. This is actually the system view showcasing the standard concrete box girder structures. Now the next three slides are the local bridge examples. I'd like to point out that this is a standard bridge with decorative railing as aesthetic enhancement. The second question tonight is whether the City Council support the standard bridge structural design with optional enhancements to be reviewed in a future meeting. The Pear Approach is adjacent to the Gateway Master Plan site between Highway 101 and Pear Avenue. With the Council's support, the proposed bridge is kept elevated for potential future east-west connection from La Bonita to the bottom of your screen and possibly from the Gateway site. As a wider deck is recommended to accommodate the possible east-west travel movements. See-through skylight feature are also recommended as optional enhancement to create more lighting for the pedestrian below the elevated path. The skylight option, along with a straight pedestrian path below, street tree, landscaping, are to improve the surrounding area on the street level between Highway 101 and Pear Avenue into the picture. This is a schematic illustrating how the future La Bonita overcrossing can be connected to the current bridge project. This viewpoint also shows how the La Bonita overcrossing can be a potential feature, gateway feature to the North Bay Shore area. This is a schematic showing both overcrossings. Now, lastly, the last question for tonight is whether the City Council support the recommended design consideration as presented. The preliminary layout presented tonight are developed to target to meet these two approved budgets. After tonight's meeting, with Council's direction, staff will start to develop design concept and refine exhibits for future meeting in early 2021. Staff also will coordinate with BPAC and begin the call for artists process with Visual Arts Committee, and continue to engage the Gateway Master Plan team and coordinate with Caltrans. This concludes staff's presentation. These are the 3 questions that the staff asked for the council tonight.
Great, thank you very much. Since this is a study session, I will go to public comment first, but I just wanted to check. I heard that the sound is not working. We know if that has been looked out.
We're troubleshooting that issue right now, Mayor.
Okay, so will the attendees hear us, or do they hear us?
Yes, it seems to be just a broadcast issue that we're working on right now.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So then I will go to public comment. If you'd like to present public comment and you are in the attendee box on Zoom, please hit the raise hand button at the bottom of the box. And if you're calling in by phone, please press *9. The city clerk will display the timer on the screen. And I see 3 hands up right now. So I'll start off with Alex Brown. And I'm not seeing. Alex, are you there? I don't have the unmute button on. Capability. Oh. I'm sorry, City Clerk, do you have the unmute button showing? I don't have it showing on my...
You should.
Oh, here we go.
There you go, Mayor.
Just got it. Thank you. So I'm going to start with Alex Brown. You were at the top before things moved around. So welcome. Can you...
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, great.
Awesome. Hey, Alex Brown, Santa Terra Villa, North Bay Shore, Mountain View. I was really hoping for a lot more from this plan. I feel like allowing for a crossover from La Avenida that crosses the entirety of Shoreline, along with the transit improvements there, is putting us as an afterthought. I don't think that there's a well-formulated plan for how to get bikers from the Stevens Creek Trail down La Avenida over to the Gateway, or up from Shoreline from the new Terra development up to Stevens Creek Trail or into our park. I'm just a little disappointed with this current plan. That's about it. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll go on to Emily Ramos. You should be on.
Hi. Oh, that's a fun picture. So I actually just wanted to comment. So yeah, Legislar, when you viewed the meeting that way, that doesn't have sound. It also is not showing up on YouTube, but that's nothing to do with the agenda item, but I just wanted to point that out. So, but we can hear everything on Zoom, I guess, obviously. But thank you so much.
Yes, I know staff is working on the technical issues right now, so please bear with us. I'm going to go to Albert James. Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your participant ID. You have entered the meeting as a panelist. Attendees can now hear you speak. This meeting is being recorded.
Sure, on the corners there, along with pedestrians that want to cross, and it just seems like a recipe for disaster and something that could be easily avoided just by elevating the bike path past Terra, as I showed in my presentation, and putting a bridge across to connect to the other side to connect to both sides of Shoreline, so that cyclists going north on Shoreline can seamlessly connect to the bike path by crossing over Terra on an elevated section. Yeah, it's going to add cost, and I'm sure the elevated section at Avenida is adding cost too, but this whole thing is costing tens of millions of dollars. We might as well make this the best bridge that we can, and so that it's very attractive for people to use and really encourages people to use it. The way it is now, if I was riding on Shoreline, if I got the green light for Shoreline, I'd just keep going over the overpass instead of waiting to get onto the bike path. It's only going to take you a couple minutes to get to the other side anyways. So, anyways, those are my comments. Thank you very much. Anyways, in general, I think this is a good plan. That's all.
Great, thank you very much. Any other attendees wishing to speak? If not, City Clerk, do we have additional public comment?
Mayor, I'll just report quickly. I believe that the audio issue has been resolved. I wanted to just inquire, we did have, if Mr. Vasquez is interested in speaking, if he would raise his hand or press *9 if he's using his phone. Otherwise, I don't have any other... I don't have any others signed up, and I'm just going to check for emails. I do not have any emails or voicemail messages. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Vasquez, if you see you in our attendee box, if you are interested in speaking, could you please raise your hand? I don't see his hand going up. So with that, we will close public comment and bring it back to council. There are a few questions for us to answer. Let's see. Who would like to start? And let's see. Oh, I'm going to try a straw vote on item 1, and then if there's additional comments, we can take that. So if you support the recommended...
Questions first, Mayor?
Oh, questions. I'm sorry. Yes, please.
Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry. Let's go ahead and ask questions. So Councilmember McAllister, you want to start us off?
Yes, please. One question. Why have the connection with Lavanita and not Pear? What was the thought process of moving it there close to the freeway and not putting it more central for the crosswalk over?
Hi, this is Terra with the Public Works Department. I'm the project manager for the project. So the idea came around when we were working with the Gateway Master Plan team. And there was discussion about La Avenida does not, for the future, does not have a grade crossing in mind, as it will impact the capacity and traffic operations significantly. With the overcrossing at La Avenida in the future, we will be able to move pedestrian above grade, and therefore reduce one more conflict at the street level. And also, La Avenida is a heavy employment center as well. As you know, Microsoft is on La Avenida near Macon Avenue. So the interest is for the future, if employers and employees would like to enter the Gateway Master Plan site, the La Bonita Overcrossing would be an alternative for people to get to the Gateway site.
But doesn't Pear also put you into more of a central district for pedestrians and for the residential properties in there? And considering that we're going to put a off-ramp over there on La Bonita, that's going to be a bottleneck where they're going to have to go a little bit and then wait for the on-ramp traffic to go. So what thoughts were you thinking about when with that new off-ramp on there? Because it's going to be a small section for them to cross before they hit another stop sign.
I think if Don, you can answer to this. And then before Don take over, at the beginning of coordination with the property owner at the Gateway site area, there was an interest of not having a huge elevated structure just right along the frontage of the property, and this having the overcrossing at Pear and Shoreline Boulevard, that means the path will continue to be elevated, and then after reaching Pear Avenue, you will then have to descend further down to the next block.
So thank you, Lisa. This is Dawn Cameron, Public Works Director. First off, as you know, the crossing of Shoreline and La Bonita was not even part of the original concept for this bike path bridge. It was simply intended to be a north-south crossing of 101. The thought of leaving an option open, that's all this design does right now, for a future crossing at La Bonita, was taking into consideration that we could see increased bike and ped demand crossing at La Bonita with the growth and development, as Tina was referencing, that's going to happen to the east with Microsoft and a few other areas there. And with the reversible transit lane happening at Shoreline and La Bonita, that is not a good place for an at-grade bike path crossing. So what we saw was the opportunity to not preclude and design this in a way that there could be an overcrossing at La Bonita, for Shoreline at La Bonita, that would allow then the reversible transit lane to operate efficiently, provide a really great connection across Shoreline at this area for bikes and peds, and that connection to the east, and eventually the Stevens Creek Trail much more efficiently. As Tina was referencing, there is a desire to get the bridge back down to grade to provide really good, easy access for bikes and peds. And the Pear Avenue intersection is being set up in a way with protected bike lanes, great pedestrian crossings to be that point where it comes back down to grade, creates a better, more open entrance for the gateway development that's going to happen on the west side or continuing north along Shoreline or crossing Shoreline at grade at Pear. And that to us is the best possible plan in terms of the reversible transit lane, traffic flow, and good bike and ped access.
Okay. My other question is, we're going to have, with this beautifully designed bridge that I can say is big and wide, we're going to be taking a bike track that's going to be on both sides of Shoreline all the way up past Crittenton or up to up that direction. So why do we need to have 3 parallel bike tracks, 2 on Shoreline and 1 on the bridge?
Councilmember McAllister, so the on-street bike lanes are to be maintained, and then a lot of the experienced bicyclists would prefer to and have the experience to be able to take the shortest route. As you could recall from the schematic, the proposed bridge actually is a pretty long route from point A to point B from the beginning of Terra to all the way to Pear Avenue. So this is for a lot of the experienced commuters that prefer to get to their destination faster. I think the option is also for them to use the on-street bike lane. And during the development of the Shoreline Corridor study, the public input period, a lot of the input that we received was to have these on-street facility to be remained.
But isn't it, are we going to have to require right-of-way to maintain the bicycle track along Shoreline going up to, like, say, Sterling Court?
For the proposed bridge, there will be some...
Bridge, but just for if you maintain your proposed bicycle lanes on both sides of Shoreline, and if you went up to let's say up to Charleston, would you be requiring to take right-of-way to put those bike lanes in there?
So the North Bay Shore Precise Plan does assume, does build into it a two-way cycle track on one side of Shoreline, I believe, and on the other side, it may be, I cannot recall, I'm sorry, if it's two-lane or a single-directional bicycle lane. So that's baked into the North Bay Shore Precise Plan. However, as we continue to work on plans for North Bay Shore, as, for instance, Google presents plans for what may happen in the shorebird area and so on, the exact provision of bike facilities on both sides of Shoreline will be further refined and defined, and any right-of-way needs will be accommodated through approving those developments.
Okay. And so when we're looking at safety over time, I would expect. And so, how much time would somebody save by staying on Shoreline versus taking the safer route over the new bridge? A minute, 30 seconds? I mean, when you say experienced bikers, how many aren't we trying to, we already got experienced bikers, aren't we trying to encourage more non-experienced bikers, and so they could go along that route too? I mean, it sounds like you're building could you answer the first question first about how much time would somebody be saving?
Council member, this is Lisa Allen, the principal engineer. And so with the bridge option, if someone was an average bicyclist, I'm going to say 5 miles per hour, it would take them about 8 minutes to cross the bridge. If they're going 10 miles per hour, it will be 4 minutes. And so I would assume if you remain on Shoreline Boulevard, it will probably take you less than 4, I would say. 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay. And
assuming it's stopped by a stoplight at one of the ramps. The bike bridge is not going to be held up by any stoplights.
And what do you expect Visual Arts Committee to add to the project? The visual on top of the bridge, or built into the concrete structure of the bridge?
We'll be discussing that once we pick an artist during the call for artist process to engage them in the preliminary concept alternatives. As shown in one of the slides in the presentation, there are various options. We have seen ours can be incorporated just over the Shoreline Overcrossing. It can be incorporated in the railing or the mesh in the fence or on the surface. And the same can apply for the Terra approach and the Pear Approach. And this will we will be closely working with the artists to come up with a design and build into the actual installation and construction of the bridge structure itself.
Thank you.
All right, next, Councilmember Hicks and then Councilmember Matichak after.
My main questions are about how staff sees the bike and pedestrian bridge fitting into the overall bike and pedestrian system between North Bay Shore and the rest of town. Mostly I'm referring to Permanente and Stevens Creek bikeways and pedestrian paths. I'm just wondering, do you envision, or has it been envisioned that some of them are more recreational and some more commute-oriented, some are expected to be faster and slower, or some more pedestrian-oriented, some more bicycle-oriented, or day, night, did I say? Maybe I said already, different speeds. I kind of want to get a better sense of how this fits into the overall system. then that was the thing for me that was lacking from the staff report. So any comments you might have to clear that up would be helpful for me.
I can answer that. This is Lisa Al. So currently, we did a trip count recently in February, and currently it shows most of the commuters to North Bayshore are taking Stevens Creek Trail. The highest peak hour we have was about 150 using Stevens Creek Trail, and then about 90 using Permanente Creek, and only 22 in Shoreline Boulevard. And I'm assuming that because Shoreline Boulevard is not built out with all the bicycle and pedestrian facilities. So this bridge comes about from the Shoreline Corridor study to connect people from the transit center to North Bayshore. And the city is currently working on projects between the transit center and North Bayshore. This is just one segment of it. We are working on the design of the bike and pet facilities along Fairland Road. That will lead from Central Expressway to Montecito and all the way up to Middlefield Road. And then the facilities along Middlefield Road to the bridge is being covered by the Shoreline Reversible Transit Lane project. So that's how this project is working to serve commuters from the transit center. As what we've heard comments from the public regarding evenings when the trails may be closed, that a lot of them would probably be using this project to return south towards the city. So they use the trails, the two Permanente and Stevens Creek trails during the day, in the morning, and then they most likely may be using this bridge or Shoreline Boulevard in the evenings during the winter time. I think we're working on additional bike and pedestrian facilities in the North Bayshore to connect commuters, both from the Permanente Creek side and Stevens Creek, to get to the Shoreline Boulevard.
Okay, thank you. I mean, my question is geared at, because I don't think you can design everything into every single trail. I'm wondering whether this is considered more of a commute path, and for example, the Shoreline, the Stevens Creek would be more of a recreational path, so that I can figure out what kind of pedestrian amenities and bike amenities get allocated to each one. Has there been any thought about kind of differentiating the trails in terms of use or the bikeways?
So, Lisa, if I could, this is definitely being planned towards commuting. And that's why it's part of a system that will lead from the downtown transit center and all the Caltrain trains coming in and so on. And it starts with the underpass of the train tracks and Central Expressway that we're building as part of the transit center grade separation project. As Lisa was saying, to these bike lanes, the facilities being put on Sterling, which connects to protected bikeways on Shoreline, that connects to this bridge to get you into North Bayshore, and then connects to protected bikeways that spread throughout North Bayshore to connect to employment sites. The distance that we're talking about, yes, you can walk it, but it's going to be a very long walk. So I would say we will see pedestrians, but the bridge itself is over half a mile long, but the primary users are going to be bicycles.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Matichak?
Thank you. I'm curious if staff could comment on what you would expect to happen at the intersection of Terra and Shoreline in terms of the bicyclists that might be staging there, following up on Mr. James's comments. And did we look at any other configuration of the path at that intersection?
So at this stage of the design for the proposed bridge, we haven't looked into it, but we will be closely looking at the operation of this intersection, especially after the reversible transit lane is put in place. We will monitor it and make modifications as design continue. Since there's facility improvement hasn't been in place, we haven't been looking at how this intersection would be operated and how to really direct all the potential users of the bridge could safely maneuver. So again, we will look at the intersection operation and design as a later part of the design stage.
And a later part of the design stage for this overcrossing, not something else. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Because I think he raised a good point about what might happen at that intersection and how we want it to function very well and not have a lot of buildup of bicyclists there. Let's see. Also, I was wondering if we did take a look at providing a little bit of relief to especially pedestrians, although I just heard that we don't expect a lot of pedestrians to use this, in terms of some shade. I'm kind of concerned that this is a pretty long expanse of concrete and metal, and it could be pretty warm for people using this. And I was wondering, did we look at all at, I know that it would add to the cost, but any sort of median with trees on it?
We haven't looked into the overall humidity on the bridge and leading up to the bridge. Right now, at this stage, we're looking at different the key questions that we ask, especially for the bridge structure itself. And once we have a direction from the council, and if you, we can look into shading humidity, how we can build in with the railing. There are some other considerations that we need to evaluate based on Caltrans requirements. Usually they would like to have if you have a railing or fence, there will be see-through mesh. We'll have to coordinate and consult with Caltrans as well if we provide over the head for the shading area and how that might impact our permitting process. But it's something that we can note down and discuss in the conceptual alternative when we come back in the future meeting.
So we can't do anything with trees or anything like that on this bridge?
I don't have an answer to that question in terms of providing actual trees and or landscaping. We can look into it and then provide you with a response either in a future meeting or a follow-up response after the meeting.
Okay. And when was the last time the Bike Ped Committee took a look at this?
They were involved in the development of the Shoreline Corridor study. The public input or outreach process, I think they were engaged twice. They had two meetings, and the key discussion mainly was having a connection over the freeway, and the result is a separated mixed use or a shared use path, and we recommended a 20 feet wide bridge.
So did they have an opportunity to talk about that, a 20-foot wide bridge, and what this might look like? Or is that after we review it?
I do not recall the discussion details. Dawn, I think she's ready.
So we understand that there was quite a bit of discussion about the width of the bridge, how it would best serve bikes and peds when the need for the bridge was first identified in the Shoreline Corridor study. So what you're seeing today is consistent with the basic design and concepts that came out of that study that had community outreach and worked with the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. After direction from you today in terms of the approach for each of these approaches and segments and what you want us to further explore, various concept alternatives will be developed, and we will be going back through the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee with those concepts before we come back to City Council.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
you. Vice Mayor.
Great. Thanks so much. So I just have two quick questions. So when we are talking about the commuting, what I was trying to scour through the staff report to see if I missed it. Is it going to be 15 miles an hour speed limit like it is on Stevens Creek Trail, or has there been thought onto what that'll be like?
The speed limit typically for bike lanes is 15 miles per hour.
15. Great, thank you. And then I just had one follow-up question, and I think one of the speakers asked this as well, talking about the La Avenida to Stevens Creek connection, and how that might work. I was just wondering if staff could answer that question.
So right now there are plans already in the works to add bike lanes along the La Avenida. Part of that's going to be done by the Microsoft project, and part of it will be continued and finished by our Shoreline off-ramp realignment project. So the hope would be that, we're already making these, improvements along La Avenida that will get towards the trail. And then eventually, if we do be able to build this bridge offshoot over Shoreline, it could connect directly into those bike lanes.
Great, thank you. And then I was trying to remember where the green striped lanes are. I can't remember if it's on Shorebird or Charleston. And will those also, is the idea that those lanes will also kind of filter in and be able to be used by these future bike pedestrian bridges?
Well, the North Bayshore Precise Plan does call for protected bikeways along Charleston, and in fact, some of those have already been built and are open, and more are in design. There's actually a very extensive bike network plan throughout North Bayshore as the North Bayshore Precise Plan gets built out, and there will be quite a bit of connectivity throughout for bicyclists.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Those are my questions.
Great, thank you. Any other council members with questions? No? Okay. Oh, Councilmember McAllister?
Just one follow-up. Was there a discussion that La Avenida would connect with Stevens Creek Trail? Did someone ask that question? That there would be bike lanes connecting those up? Is that you, Lucas? Because you're smiling. So did you ask that question? I thought you did. Ellen did?
Are you asking that question?
Yeah, I'm asking it. Is there any plans for the La Avenida bike trails, bike lanes, to meet up with Stevens Creek Trail? Anybody asked that question?
And there's the entrance there. If there are bike lanes that are scheduled to be built on La Avenida, I think there will be a connection, but if staff wants to elaborate, that'd be great.
I think it might be easiest if we go ahead and provide you the plans for La Avenida after this meeting as a follow-up report, so that you can see what's going to be built out there and how it will connect to the trail.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from council members? If not, could we try to do a straw vote on, we'll take each item, and if you have further comments on them, we'll take it after the vote. So on item 1, does council members support staff recommendations? Please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Councilmember McAllister, do you support? Councilmember McAllister, do you support staff recommendations?
Let me just, as you can see, I just came off the golf course. I'm a little disjointed here, so.
That looks like it. It's a two-way off-street cycle track and sidewalk, including installation of street trees, landscape, and street lights along the west side.
Absolutely. Love the design.
Great. Thank you. And Councilmember Matichak, do you have comments?
I just want to add that this is the area where I'd like to understand more about how the Shoreline Terra intersection is going to work.
Great. And I just wanted to add, we got some public comments in regards to the landscaping. I think, it's always nice to beautify, but there are issues with visibility and safety, and like the Stevens Creek Trail, although it's very lush, we tend to have some issues at times. So if there can be a consideration for safety and first, I would appreciate that. Councilmember Hicks, did you have other comments?
Very related to that, and also very related to a comment that Councilmember Matichak had said earlier. Although I share your concerns about safety, I also am concerned about health and usability because of, I guess, what I've been reading about particular bike and pedestrian pathways. If there's too much concrete, the air filtration is poor, and also people on hot days tend to not want to use them. So I think it's really important to balance those two factors. Certainly look out for visibility, but I would hate it to become kind of a concrete jungle that then is not used because of lack of shade, or that adds to people, particularly in this time of COVID-19, adds to people's lung problems over time because of too much concrete and not enough air filtration. So I do want landscaping to be and trees to be an important part of the project. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Matichak.
Sorry, I must not have lowered my hand.
I'm sorry, I didn't lower it. Thank you. Okay. And any other comments on one? If not, can we move on to question 2? Does council support recommended standard bridge structure design, concrete box girder for the proposed bridge with optional enhancements to be reviewed by the City Council in a future meeting? If you support staff recommendation on 2, could I get a show of hands? 1, 2, 3, 4. Councilmember Hicks, did you have a vote now, or do you want to comment first?
Oh, I'll comment first. I've seen an increasing number of bikeways, raised bikeways that are not, just very lately, that are not the concrete box types, that are steel. And I actually asked this question in our council questions, whether that had been considered for all or part of this. And the answer I got was it wouldn't work for something that's long. But actually, the ones I've been reading about, it's in articles that the headline says enthusiastically, longest bike path in the world. So they're very streamlined. They're nicer in a lot of ways, and I think they're less expensive. So I would like those to be at least looked into, to be a part of our network. So I may not be voting for this if that just puts it on people's, on staff to do this, to look into it at some time. That may be worth it. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Councilmember Clark.
Yeah, I support the staff recommendation here. I just wanted to highlight one thing that I think would be, a low-cost way to add interest to this structure, especially if we go with sort of a standard concrete box girder structure. And I realize that Caltrans isn't simple to work with on these things, but any sort of lighting elements that we can incorporate that add some interest. I know that Caltrans won't want them to be too distracting to drivers, but if we can just light it up in different colors at different times of the year, or even if you can't light the entire bridge, if you could backlight some sort of art or one or two pieces within the bridge just to draw some visual interest to it in the evening. I think that would go a long way. I think some of the most interesting bridges I've seen are actually the most interesting at night in various parts of the country. So I know Caltrans is a hurdle there, but I think that would be a low-cost way to make something that's a pretty standard design stand out in the Bay Area generally.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Matichak, did you have further comments?
Yes, on this one, this is the area or the section of the overcrossing that I was most concerned about the heat, because you are going over many lanes of a freeway, so it's a whole lot of concrete in this area. My perfect scenario would be you would separate bicyclists and pedestrians with a nice median with trees on it in this section. I'm guessing that's not going to be possible, but that would be my perfect view of this. I am concerned about, lighting, and I'm mostly concerned that I don't want it to interfere with the birds and other wildlife in this area. And so I don't really want this to be so distracting that it attracts birds. I don't know if the Belmont O'Neill one that is shown on page 15, I really like that one. Very simple. I think it's artistic. I don't know what lighting they have on that one, but I don't want the lighting to be a distraction, and Caltrans probably won't let you do that anyway, because you don't want to distract the other people using the freeway. But I want to be really careful about lighting on this one. And that's it.
Great, thank you. Councilmember McAllister.
I should have asked this question when we're going with a standard box. Was this designed because of the efficiency or the cost?
This is Tina. The recommended option is based on two primary considerations. First is lack of visibility.
I understand that one.
And the other is the life cycle cost. In general, the construction cost and maintenance cost in the future for a concrete box girder bridge is cheaper or less than a standard steel truss bridge, for example. And also the steel bridge typically requires specialized personnel to install, to construct, to maintain, inspect, and even to do routine maintenance. The cost and visibility.
Okay, no, that makes sense. So I guess you could put lipstick on a pig and make it look good. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. I do support it.
Great, thank you. Any other comments on item 2? If not, we'll go to question 3. Does council support the recommended design considerations, such as the skylight option and a wider deck area to facilitate travels on the proposed and future bridges within the Pear Avenue approach? If you support staff recommendation, can I get a show of hands? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we'll take comments. Councilmember McAllister, and then Councilmember Matichak.
I like the approach. I like where they were talking about the skylights, but I'm still concerned about the approach to La Avenida. I know it's conceptual that we might go down there, but I think hopefully when it comes back to us, more research, as the Public Works Director said, that we'll get a better idea of what's going on to La Avenida. But I approach it. I support everything but that one concept until I get clarity.
Councilmember Matichak.
Thank you. So I really like the skylight option that staff has proposed. I think that will add a lot. I share Councilmember McAllister's concern about what happens at La Avenida. Like the Terra intersection, I feel like this is another one where we need to carefully think through all the likely scenarios and how we're going to address that to make it good for all modes of transportation. And then this was not in the staff report, but it was shown in the presentation. I do have concerns, I'm going to start saying it now, about the visual that was shown for what the section that could go to La Avenida might look like. That to me is a very unfriendly bird design. So we talk about bird friendly, that's bird unfriendly, with the suspension structure part of it. So while I think you can have a gateway bridge there, I don't think it should be one that is not conducive to the natural environment in North Bayshore. Thanks.
Okay, any other comments on item 3? I did have at least a majority, 7 on the first question, 6 on the second, and 6 on the third question. So council majority support for staff recommendation on all 3. And then if there are any overall comments, Councilmember Marichek, do you have other comments, or was this from previous? It might have been.
Sorry, I keep on forgetting to unraise or to lower my hand. I mute me but forget to lower my hand.
I'll try to do better about that too. All right. Okay, I don't see any other comments. I just want to thank staff for bringing this forward. This has been, I feel like, a very well anticipated project, and so I'm excited to see it moving forward. And I expect it will be an iterative process and coming back to us in the future for more refinement. So look forward to that. So with that, we will close. Any other staff? Is there anything else from staff? Oh, okay, great. With that, we will close the study session and move on to the regular agenda. We have 3 minutes, so please take a 3-minute break, and we'll be back at 6:30. Thank you. 5 of us. So I will go ahead and start our regular session at 6:31. Calling the meeting to order. I have an announcement I would like to make. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with State of California Executive Order N-29-20, dated March 17, 2020. All members of the City Council are participating in this meeting by video conference with no physical meeting location. Members of the public wishing to observe the meeting live may do so at mountainview.legistar.com, on YouTube at mountainview.gov/YouTube, and on Comcast Channel 26. As noted on the meeting agenda, members of the public may provide oral public comments during the public comment period for an item by signing up at mountainview.gov/cc_speakers. Any emails and voicemail messages received by 5 p.m. today were forwarded to the City Council. Emails received after 5 p.m. and prior to the close of the public comment period for the agenda item will be read into the record by the City Clerk, and any voicemail messages received will be played by the City Clerk. All votes will be taken by roll call vote. Now I'd like to ask the City Clerk to proceed with roll call.
Thank you. Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Hicks. Thank you. Councilmember Matichak.
Here.
Councilmember McAllister.
Yep.
Councilmember Ramirez.
Here.
Vice Mayor Kamei.
Here.
Mayor Abikoga.
Here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So all council members are present, and we will move on to item 3. We have a couple of presentations this evening. The first one we'd like to start off with 3.1 is an update on our COVID-19 relief activities by our city manager, Kimber McCarthy. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to share my computer screen here. Okay. Can you all see it? Great. All right. So good evening, council members. Today marks the 6th week that we have been sheltering in place, and just yesterday we learned that the current shelter-in-place order would be continuing through the end of May. And I wanted to start off by saying that I recognize the sacrifice that this takes for our community and our staff, and the overwhelming uncertainty and stress that many of us are experiencing. And I do want to assure the community that the city team is rising to the occasion, and we are continuing to serve with determination and flexibility. And we're doing our very best to adapt to the daily changes and uncertainty of how this crisis is unfolding as the weeks and months go on. And so tonight I'd like to share a few important updates this evening and also highlight some positive developments. So the first thing, as per usual, that I do every week, I'd like to share an update on the donations to our Together MD donation portal. So as of today, the fund has received 554 individual donations, totaling almost $100,000. And the rent relief program has around 290 donations at around $57,000, and the business relief program has 254 donations totaling around $42,000. So again, I just want to reiterate and thank the community for their generosity in pulling together to provide relief for those of our community members who need help with rent or small business assistance. Then I also want to provide an update on where the rent relief program is as of Friday, some data information. So far, there have been around 1,600 applications, and of those applications in process, there are around 1,438 applications. 196 households have been assisted so far, with an average check of around $2,100. And I also included the breakdown of the area median income, so you can see that the program continues to primarily fund, with over half of the funding going towards people who are in the 0 to 30% of the AMI range. And then between 30 and 50%, around 16% of people. And then those who are under 51 to 80%, almost 23% of the applicants are in that range. So the program does continue to maintain the spirit and the parameters that City Council talked about a few weeks ago. And the new development that I want to talk about tonight, I'm very pleased to be able to announce that our Small Business Resiliency Microloan Program is expected to launch tomorrow. And before I get into the details, I want to thank staff for all of their work and efforts on this, in particular Business Development Specialist Tiffany Chu and Principal Analyst Melvin Gaines, who worked very hard on this project over the past month. At the same time, I do want to also recognize Dean Miller with the Los Altos Community Foundation. They have been a great collaborative partner with the city and really working creatively with our team and our corporate partners to bring this program to fruition with Main Street launch. The total of all available funds for the Small Business Resiliency Program is close to $1 million. This includes funding from the city, where the city contributed $400,000, Google, who contributed $400,000, LinkedIn, who contributed $100,000, and then the generous donations from our community members through the Together MB Fund, which I just described, that are around $50,000. So as I mentioned, the program is expected to launch tomorrow through the Main Street Launch website, and they are taking a phased approach to this launch. So tomorrow, the release inquiry form will be available on the Main Street Launch website, and on May 1st, the loan application opens. And Main Street Launch will begin to work through the first batch of applications just at the administrative level and start to process those applications. On May 11th, the loan application closes. The loan application period might be extended based upon the number of applicants received in the first batch and then the availability of funds. But at this point, we are planning on closing it on May 11th. And we will have an opportunity to create a wait list and inquiry forms in case more funding becomes available. So in terms of the details of the program, the available microloans will be up to $10,000 at a 0% interest rate with a 3-year payback period. Interested parties can submit an email to smbiz, B-I-Z, COVID-19help at mountainview.gov. So again, that's smbiz, COVID-19help at mountainview.gov. And this information will also be pushed out on all of our communications channels tomorrow, including a press release on the city's website, on our social media channels, through the Chamber of Commerce, the call center that we're setting up that I will describe in a little bit, and then also through the Central Business Association. So again, we're pleased that this funding that the City Council provided a few weeks ago has come to fruition in terms of this program, and we're hopeful that this will be a great resource to small businesses in our community. Then I also wanted to highlight quite a few of the small business efforts that are underway right now. And right now, staff are working closely with the Chamber and the Downtown Business Association to showcase all of the businesses that are open, including the restaurants, at www.ilovemv.org. And you can go to this ilovemv.org and you will see a list of all of the available businesses that are open, and you can scroll through. Staff are also allowing businesses to display temporary signs right now, so banners and A-frame signs are allowed for businesses to advertise that they're open. We are deferring sidewalk cafe permit fees to October of 2020. We're also allowing businesses right now to operate on sidewalks. So, for example, if there are businesses that are offering to-go food, we are allowing those to be operated on sidewalks. I also wanted to mention that there's a small business roundtable event hosted by the Chamber on May 13th at noon. And at this point, that event is expected to have local banks there who will be providing information on small business funding opportunities. And lastly, we have launched an effort citywide with a great number of city staff who will be calling all businesses in the city to touch base and talk about the resources that are available to our small businesses. So as I mentioned, we have a large team of staff that are working on this effort, and they will be doing this proactive outreach to the small business community, and this effort is expected to start next week. Then the other program that is launching tomorrow is our Landlord Assistance Program. So like the Small Business Resiliency Program, this will be serviced through Main Street Launch, and again, in partnership with the Los Altos Community Foundation, working with the city team on setting this up. So it will be similar to the resiliency program that I just described in terms of the timing. So the release inquiry form will be tomorrow, launched tomorrow through the Main Street Launch website, and then the loan application itself opens on May 1st. And then Main Street Launch will begin to work through the first batch of applications at that time. And also, just like the prior program, the loan program is expected to close on May 11th. So in terms of some of the details, right now the microloans are anticipated to be up to $5,000 for 1 month, and borrowers may apply for funds for a max of 2 months, which would be $10,000 total, and that is dependent on funding availability and the number of requests that come in. So like the Small Business Resiliency Program, it's at a 0% interest rate, and the repayment period is for 12 months. Then the other program that is launching this week that Council funded is the Utility Bill Assistance Program. So Council allocated $100,000 towards setting up this program, and what the program parameters are is that customers may apply to receive a $50 credit per account, and that is equal to about a 20% discount on an average monthly bill. And it is going to be first come, first served, and people who are interested, they contact by email or phone, and the email is revenuestaff@mountainview.gov, or they may call 650-903-6317. And then I also wanted to point out that right now the city is not shutting off any service due to non-payment. We're also waiving penalties and interest on any late payments. And staff is also working in good faith with customers on payment arrangements as unique situations arise. So as I mentioned, there will be a form that the utility bill customers can fill out, and they can email the revenue staff at mountainview.gov or call that phone number to get that email, or excuse me, to get that form. And I also wanted to end with information that we learned about today, due in large part to a donation from our library. So there were a number of students at Mountain View High School in engineering class who were concerned about the shortage of PPE equipment at local medical facilities, and they wanted to do something with their 3D printers and other technology. And so they created a project to design and print face shields and so-called ear savers to help folks that may need them. And our city library donated the city's 3D printer to help students make these face shields and ear savers for frontline workers. And so far, the students have printed frames for over 120 face shields, and they have orders for about 100 more. And students have donated these face shields to Mountain View Healthcare, which is a local skilled nursing facility. And they've also donated to school district workers who are handing out meals to over 500 students a day. So we're very pleased that the students were able to use the library's 3D printer to help with these efforts. And then just the same as in prior weeks, I want to encourage everyone to take the census. It is open until October 31st, and we want to make sure that everyone in our community is counted. So I encourage everyone to go online and fill out their census. And then lastly, just a reminder that people may sign up for our 3 times a week community briefing. They can text him the COVID to 22828 to receive an email with an update 3 times a week about our latest COVID-19 efforts. So with that, that concludes my update this week, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. We do have a question, Councilmember Matichak.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I heard correctly the details of the loans for small businesses via Main Street launch. And so I know that email address has been used for businesses to express interest prior to the start of the launch. But then I heard you say that people should go to the Main Street launch website and submit something. Is that, like, which queue are we going to work through to allocate the funds that we have? Is it the email list, or is it what you submit on the website?
So the email list is, sorry, I didn't know, is there feedback? The email list is for interested parties to register their interest so that we can then email them and let them know when the program launches. So they will have to go to Main Street Launch to physically click on the button and go through the process of applying. But we wanted to make sure that we at least had an interest list of our businesses so that we could proactively reach back out to them and say, the program's launched, here's where you go, here's what you need to do.
Okay, so tomorrow they should all get an email at the same time it's launched.
Yes.
And will there be, I'm just looking on their website, and it looks like they're working with several different cities, and so there'll be a special place for Mountain View?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you.
They've created a special page just for the Mountain View program, and so that will be highlighted. And you see that they have worked with San Francisco and Oakland, and there'll be a very special page just for the Mountain View program.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Councilor Ramirez?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for this update. Really good and helpful information here. I just have a few questions. So first, regarding the small landlord relief program, you know, we have 2 programs that both sort of address similar needs in different ways, and you know, it's a relatively small pot of funding. But for small landlords who are unable to benefit from that program, they may still be able to benefit from the rent relief program. And similarly, you know, those small landlords may have tenants who apply for the rent relief program, but we may exhaust the funding before those folks are able to benefit. So can we use this opportunity to make sure that small landlords who are applying for a loan are also made aware of the rent relief program, so that way they can encourage their tenants to sign up through CSA? Is that something that we're already planning to do?
Yes, I believe so, but we will make sure that staff is letting the landlords know about the other program as well, so that they're aware of both resources.
Okay, fantastic. And then we haven't really talked too much about it, but and I don't claim to have a lot of knowledge about this, but I know that, you know, through FEMA and maybe some other federal and state programs, cities are able to get reimbursed for some costs associated with COVID response. So San Jose, for instance, got a big check recently. I assume we've been sort of keeping track of our expenditures related to COVID response, and does staff have a sense of how much we're likely to be able to be reimbursed by the federal government for our work?
Yes, so that is actually something that staff is assessing, and we have that included in the staff report that will come next week, the financial update, which is planned for May 5th. And at that time, we will have an estimate of all of the potential FEMA reimbursements and the total that we have. I don't want to say what the amount is now because I don't have that staff report in front of me, but that is something that we will be bringing to council, and we'll have an update in the staff report next week about that.
Fantastic. Thank you. And then the last question is, I know there's a tremendous amount of work going into what operations will look like, sort of once we get past this initial emergency response. I can't, this isn't high on the list of priorities, but advisory bodies are starting to meet again, EPC, RHC, but not all of them. And I'm wondering if ultimately we will start having virtual meetings for every advisory body. And in particular, May is generally, I think, when we have to figure out the work plans for the coming fiscal year. And so is staff already preparing for that transition for all of the advisory bodies and for other sort of getting back into the routine we had prior to the issue?
So I can answer that briefly, and then I'll also ask our assistant city manager to jump in. Yes, we are assessing what it might look like for the advisory bodies to meet again. I will say that it will not look like the normal way of doing it as before, just simply because of the staff workloads right now, which are very heavy in terms of focusing on the COVID-19 crisis, and a lot of the staff who serve as staff to the advisory bodies are the same staff that are working on our emergency efforts right now. So we do have a plan underway, and I would ask our assistant city manager to discuss the next steps. But we are actively talking about what that will look like and then how the work plan process will be right now. I would imagine that it would just be a little more limited than it has in years past. Limited in the sense that we just won't be able to undertake the number of projects and initiatives that may have been possible in the past. So I think we're going to have to put some realistic, expectations and figure out what we can and can't handle at a staff level. But that's something that I know that the staff that are staffing those committees, the advisory bodies, they're working on. And then I would just ask our assistant city manager to jump in if there's any other details that I may be missing.
The city manager has given a good overview. We have the staff in the city manager's office that are connecting with the liaisons for each of the advisory bodies to determine what their ability to meet during the month of May might be. One of the things that we've determined, although we've been, I think, very nimble in getting virtual meetings through video scheduled, they still take a tremendous amount of support, not just from the staff liaisons of the advisory bodies, but from our clerk's office and our IT department. And so we are still expecting for the month of May to not be business as usual with advisory bodies, and that those meetings would go forward really only if they have urgent items that needed to be addressed during the month of May. And based on that reality, our staff is in the manager's office talking to the liaisons, the advisory bodies around what are the items in the current work plan that won't really be feasible to have been completed by the end of this fiscal year and therefore carry forward, and then what minimal number of other items might be of high priority that could be considered in June for adoption as part of a more streamlined work plan for the advisory bodies going forward. And then we, still need to look at our, schedule for council coming back, assuming we have a normal schedule. And then it would be in September that those advisory body work plans would come to council for adoption, as we typically do.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember McAllister and then Councilmember Hicks.
Thank you. So I noticed there was 196 people were assisted for the low rent, for rental relief. Last week was it about 186 were helped, or what was the number of people who were helped last week?
me pull up those numbers. Did you have another question? And I can look at those numbers if you want to ask the other question.
No, that's all.
That's it? Okay. So last week, I think I'm going to have to get back to you on that, Councilmember McAllister. I don't have those numbers readily available, but I'll find out and let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hicks?
Okay, while we're on the subject of rent relief, so we now have 3 programs related in one way or another to renter or land relief. And I'm just wondering if there's any screening to make sure, I would just like to make sure that relief is spread around. And I'm wondering if there's any screening to make sure that the same applicants are not applying to both landlord relief programs. I don't know whether that's been thought through. I would particularly hate it if the same person got very savvy at applying and applied for 2 for the same time period or got a disproportionate amount. So if I were to set up that whole set of programs, I would want to check for that, and I'm wondering if that's happening. I'm also wondering if someone can apply for tenant relief and landlord relief, for the same unit. So I'm just wondering about screening about some of those duplications. I'm also wondering if a landlord can evict the tenant and then apply for relief for that, whereas I would prefer that if they got the relief, they keep the tenant. So various questions about screening, duplications, and those somewhat overlapping pools of money. Thanks.
Sure. So I'll try and take all of those. So the first thing is, in terms of screen applicants, CSA is administering the rent relief program for renters, and then Main Street Launch is administering the small business assistance and the landlord program. And just because of the parameters that staff have outlined, I would say it would be very rare for a landlord to be getting assistance through the rent relief program that CSA is administering, and then also apply for funds through the program through Main Street Launch. But that is something that we can make sure that we are asking as part of the program launch in terms of just the landlord portion of it that they're administering. Have you received funds through the city's rent relief program? I think that's something that we can make sure that we are putting in place. And then in terms of the parameters for that program, so for the small landlord program, the borrowers may not evict tenants for non-payment of rent due to COVID-19 until basically they have to be in compliance with the urgency ordinance, suspending evictions for non-payment. So there are parameters around that as well, that they can't get the money and then, evict people right away. Then in terms of the applicants applying to both programs, so we wouldn't have folks who are getting rent relief apply to the landlord program. And as I said, I think it would be more rare for a landlord to apply and get rent relief through CSA, just because they are requiring proof of where the person works and that they are paying rent to a landlord because the money goes to the landlord. If you're asking whether people who are getting the rent checks from CSA are the same people that are applying for the landlord program, I think that is going to take some work in terms of getting that information from CSA. But the council direction from last time was that this program would be for landlords who own less than 9 units or no more than 9 units, and it could be used for items such as capital improvement items or insurance premiums or other costs on a case-by-case basis. So not necessarily only to pay mortgage payments. So I think we would definitely have more work to do to try and cross-reference with CSA. who all the landlords are that have been receiving the rent relief payment, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I just think I've seen through other programs that I've been involved with, let's say, sometimes people get very savvy at writing, and I just want to make sure, since, I would like to give to people in need, I want to make sure that we just ask the simplest of questions to make sure that doesn't happen. Get a printout of who we're writing checks to. If we're writing, several hundred checks, we can look at who those entities are, and also, ask, as you said, have you applied before? Just a couple of simple things, whatever we can do very simply to make sure that we're, spreading the checks to those in need, and kind of that nobody's kind of double booking the check.
Thank you, and we'll have that data. I know all of that data is being collected. So,
thank you so much.
Great. Any other questions on this presentation? I just want to thank our city manager and all of our staff once again for all the hard work that's been put into the relief effort. It's really quite amazing to see how much has been accomplished in just 6 short weeks. And we had a virtual town hall meeting last week, and there's definitely a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainty, but I felt good that as a city we've been responsive to as many people as we could be. So thank you to our city manager and all our staff for all the hard work.
Thank you.
So we'll go on to item 3.2. This is a presentation by the Environmental Protection Agency Region 9 Superfund Project Manager Eric Cantinwala, I hope I pronounced that right, on the cleanup of the Jasco Chemical Corporation Superfund site and the upcoming listing process. Mr. Cantinwala, welcome.
Hello. Good evening there. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can everyone see the presentation? Wonderful. Okay, so good evening. My name is Eric Cantinwala, and I am the Superfund Project Manager with the United States Environmental Protection Agency for the Jasco Superfund site in Mountain View. The Jasco Superfund site is a hazardous waste site that was added to the National Priorities List, or Superfund list, which is a list of the most contaminated hazardous waste sites throughout the United States that have been approved for federal cleanup by the U.S. EPA. Tonight, I'm here to talk about the cleanup of this Superfund site and the upcoming deletion of this site from the National Priorities List. The delisting is the culmination of over 30 years of site cleanup work and is a major achievement for EPA, the city of Mountain View, and its residents. So we're very excited about it. We are proud of our efforts to protect human health and the environment by cleaning up contaminated land and restoring it to productive use. The site delisting will also dovetail nicely with future site use and redevelopment, and will enable a formerly contaminated hazardous waste site to become a safe and healthy home for hundreds of future Mountain View residents. So the Jasco Superfund site, just a little bit of context here, is located near the intersection of Shoreline Avenue and is in the Shoreline West neighborhood. The Jasco Chemical Corporation repackaged and formulated chemical products from 1976 to 1995 at a approximate 2-acre parcel that is surrounded by residences. And the facility handled numerous chemicals such as methylene chloride, paint thinner, denatured alcohol, and all of these chemicals are what we call volatile organic compounds. And as the name would suggest, what that means is these are chemicals that at room temperature will naturally evaporate slowly over time and go into the gas phase, which means then they can go up through contaminated groundwater and soil and up to the surface where they can reach people. So elevated levels of volatile organic compounds were detected in site soil and groundwater, and this was most likely due to past storage and disposal practices at the site. So basically what the Jasco Chemical Company did, as you can see on the site map on the right-hand side, they would offload rail cars full of these chemicals from the former rail lines that used to be there that are now used by Caltrain. And they would repackage them and store them in large underground tanks and make household cleaners, degreasers, solvents, as well as industrial chemicals that were used in the semiconductor manufacturing industry. The Superfund cleanup process has been ongoing for a number of years, and it consists of 5 main steps. Assessment, where we look to see whether there is contamination at a site or whether it's likely. Characterization, where we define the nature and extent of the contamination and assess possible solutions and remedial technologies. The record of decision, where we select one of those remedial technologies to remediate the site. Cleanup, where we actually start, turning dirt or installing some of these systems, whether it's a groundwater system or removal of soil. And then finally, we're all the way at the end of the process, where we do monitoring and 5-year reviews, and finally delete the site from the national priorities list once the site cleanup goals have been met. These are a couple of photos that show some of the remedial actions that were taken. So we removed 8 underground storage tanks ranging from 5 to 12,000 gallons. We excavated contaminated soil and removed bulk chemicals that were left on the site after the site closed down. There were 3 main types of media that were contaminated at the site: soil, soil vapor, and groundwater, all with volatile organic compounds. So soil vapor, those are gases that form in the soil when chemicals evaporate over time. So picture, it's slowly seeping out, not, something that would be comparable to a boiling pot. And to remediate the soil, EPA excavated the soil, disposed of some of it off-site, and also used bioremediation, which is microbes, to degrade some of the contaminants in the soil. For groundwater, a groundwater treatment system was installed that used carbon absorption treatment with an air stripper unit to remediate the site groundwater. So basically, groundwater extraction wells were installed, the water was pumped through the surface, and then treated using the treatment system you see here. And the system was turned off in 2002 when groundwater met site cleanup goals. So in 2002, cleanup goals were met for soil and groundwater treatment at the site. However, we continued to monitor groundwater at the site for another 8 years until 2010. And that was to confirm that the decreasing trends that we saw in contaminants, we confirmed that those trends were continuing and that the levels didn't increase after time. At this point in time, all response activities are complete, and the criteria for deleting the site from the national priorities list has been met. In addition, EPA conducted 2 5-year reviews, and what a 5-year review is basically, it's where EPA goes back to a site after remediation has been complete, and we go and confirm that the remedy is still functioning as originally intended, and that it's still protective of human health and the environment. So we completed 2 5-year reviews, one in 2007, another in 2012, and And the results of both of those reviews were that the remedy was still functioning as intended. So from there, we're kind of at this point where no further response is needed to meet our overall goal, which is protecting human health and the environment. Which then brings me to the next slide on site redevelopment. And these pictures might look familiar to you because I know that you've been briefed on this development by Mr. Michael Ducati of the Prometheus Group. And so they are the private real estate development company that is leading the redevelopment at the site. So there's a 226-unit apartment complex that is currently under construction. There is an environmental covenant for the property. That covenant was lodged in 2010 with the County of Santa Clara. And the environmental covenant basically says that there are some environmental project requirements that must be met in order to ensure that future construction and redevelopment at the site is protected. And while the Regional Water Quality Control Board is the lead agency for oversight and compliance with the covenant, covenant also does say that EPA has a role as well. So some of the project requirements include the installation of a vapor intrusion mitigation barrier. So this will go under the project, and basically this is a sheeting that will go to prevent vapors from the site from going into any future development. There will also be post-construction monitoring and adherence with the soil management plan. Some of the public benefits of the site redevelopment include $150,000 a year in anticipated tax revenue for the city of Mountain View, around 2,000 construction jobs, an alternate mitigation proposal of $12.4 million to support affordable housing off-site, a 0.4-acre park, and the use of part of the development for a future multi-use pedestrian bike path that would connect the Shoreline West neighborhood with bike paths across Central Expressway that might link up to downtown Mountain View or other neighborhoods in the future. So a little bit about the Superfund site deletion process. The EPA files a closeout report and confirms that the site is eligible for deletion. We then get concurrence from our state counterpart, which in this case was the California Department of Toxic Substances Control. And then here's the step where we're at now, is where EPA publishes what's called the Notice of Intent to Delete in the Federal Register. And that is essentially the public comment platform for the federal government. Once the notice is published, that initiates a 30-day public comment period. And then after we receive comments, EPA considers the comments and publishes a responsiveness summary. And finally, that gets published in the Federal Register again as the final notice of deletion. And then the site is officially deleted from the National Priorities List. So we anticipate on publishing the Notice of Intent to Delete around May 11th. And EPA is requesting assistance from the City Council. If there's a staff person I could get in touch with after this meeting to discuss ways in which you think would be effective to get the word out to residents and encourage them to submit public comments, that would be great. Public comments can be questions, concerns, or statements for or against the deletion. You can submit comments by emailing them directly to me or through the Federal Register. EPA will also be working on getting the word out through a public notice in the Mountain View Voice, a potential postcard mailing to nearby residences, as well as a potential press release and social media outreach. And with that, I think I'm at my time, so thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Cantiwala, for coming joining us with the presentation. Are there any questions from council members? I don't see any, and I wanted to just respond to or ask the city manager if staff will follow up with Mr. Cantinwalla about getting the word out to the public about the delisting process. And I see a nod, so our staff will be in touch with you. Thank you very much for taking time to present.
Great, thank you very much.
Right, we will move on now to item 4, our consent calendar. These items will be approved by one motion unless any member of the council wishes to remove an item for discussion. The reading of the full text of resolutions will be waived unless the council member requests otherwise. Would any member of the council like to pull an item? I don't see. Please raise your hands in the box if you do. I don't see any. Would any member of the public on the line like to provide comment on an item on the consent calendar? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom if you're an attendee in the attendee box, or press star 9 on your phone. The city clerk will display the timer on the screen. I don't see anyone in the box raising their hand. City clerk, do we have any other public comments?
No other public comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Great. So with that, then I'll close public comment and entertain a motion. Councilmember Clark.
Yeah, so I'll move the consent calendar, which includes item 4.2, adopt a resolution approving the final map of track number 10504-982 Bonita Avenue, accepting dedications and making findings as required by its city code to be read in title only, further reading waived. And 4.3, adopt a resolution amending table 19.98, designating 12-minute parking zones previously adopted by resolution number 18250 pursuant to Mountain View City Code section 19.98 to be read in title only, further reading waived.
Thank you. And Councilmember Medichak, is that a second?
It is. I'll second the motion.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion on the consent calendar? Motion by Councilmember Clark, second by Councilmember Medichak. If not, I'd like to call a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Hicks.
Yes.
Councilmember Medichak.
Yes.
Councilmember McAllister.
Yes.
Councilmember Ramirez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kamei.
Yes.
Mayor Abikoga.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes 7-0 with no abstentions. Thank you very much. We'll go on to item 5, oral communications. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda. Speakers are allowed to speak on any topic for up to 3 minutes during this section. State law prohibits the council from acting on non-agenda items. Would any member of the public on the line, again in the attendee box, like to provide comment on a non-agenda item? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or press star 9 on your phone. And we do have one member of the public, and the city clerk will show the timer on the screen. So, Mr. Albert James, welcome back. You should be on. Let's see. Okay. You should be on. There you go.
Okay, thank you. I just had a quick comment. Sorry, my dog. Sorry. Even during this shutdown, I've been walking and biking around the North Bayshore area, and with Google completely shut down, there's nobody there. But I've noticed recently an interesting phenomenon. There's a lot of cars parked on Amphitheater Parkway. At first, I thought maybe they were construction workers, but there's really no construction going on there at Charleston East. And finally, I realized those cars are owned by people that are using the safe parking lot. And then, yeah, it makes sense. They're living in their RVs, but they still have to use cars to get around. And so I'm just wondering if that's ever been considered. There's certainly a lot of space there. You could open up a little car parking lot for the people's cars. Because, they have a bit of a hike to go from there to their parking spaces on Amphitheater Parkway. And Amphitheater Parkway has limited parking, and I kind of wonder if once things start ramping up again, going to be full of construction workers, and then where are they going to park? So it's just a observation, and I hope that maybe somebody has thought about it and may think of doing something about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public on Zoom wishing to speak? I don't see any other hands raised. City Clerk, do we have any other comments?
No other comments. Thanks, Mayor.
Great, thank you. I know we're not supposed to comment, but I did want to just respond to Mr. James that staff is looking at the situation. It's been part of the safe parking, the opening of the safe parking lots, and this is all new, so we're discovering new things as we go, but that issue is being looked at right now. Thank you. So with that, I will close public comment on non-agenda items and go to item 6, our public hearing, 6.1, the zoning text amendments regarding accessory dwelling units, family daycare homes, and planned community developments. And I actually have the presenters' names. We have Brittany Whitehill, Assistant Planner, and Stephanie Williams, Planning Manager, Zoning Administrator. So welcome to both of you.
Hi there, can you see my PowerPoint presentation?
It's really small, Brittany.
Okay, let me see if I can expand that.
Okay.
She should be able to hit F5.
Let's see. My apologies. There we go. Is that okay? Awesome, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Brittany Whitehill, and I am joined tonight by Planning Manager and Zoning Administrator Stephanie Williams. The item in front of you consists of zoning ordinance amendments pertaining to accessory dwelling units, also referred to as ADUs, family daycare homes, and planned community permits. In fall of 2019, the Governor signed into law several bills amending multiple government code sections related to ADUs and junior ADUs, as well as SB 234 related to family daycare homes. This legislation became effective on January 1st, 2020. Upon reviewing new state legislation pertaining to ADUs, staff has identified necessary zoning ordinance amendments, including allowable zoning districts and ADU development standards and regulations. Additionally, state law requires jurisdictions to permit ADUs in multifamily districts. Finally, under state law, owners of unpermitted ADUs built before January 1st, 2020 may request a 5-year delay of enforcement of certain building and zoning violations. Staff will be proposing an amnesty program alongside the zoning code updates in order to comply with this state legislation and incentivize the legalization of unpermitted ADUs. The zoning ordinance currently permits ADUs in the R1 district on properties with an existing or proposed single-family home. State law now requires jurisdictions to permit ADUs in all residential zoning districts and mixed-use districts which allow for residential uses. Whereas the zoning ordinance currently limits ADUs to a maximum of 700 square feet, state law mandates that jurisdictions allow studio and one-bedroom ADUs of up to 850 square feet and ADUs with 2 or more bedrooms of up to 1,000 square feet. Cities must allow both attached and detached ADUs to be constructed 4 feet from the side property line and 4 feet from the rear property line. The zoning ordinance currently allows legal conforming garages and carports to be converted to ADUs. Now, under state law, cities must allow conversion or replacement of legal non-conforming structures with ADUs. Currently, the R1 district requires 2 parking spaces for the main house, one of which must be covered. An ADU requires 1 additional parking space, which does not need to be covered. Currently, the zoning ordinance allows certain exceptions for the ADU parking requirement. Under state law, if a garage or carport is converted to an ADU, no replacement parking needs to be provided. Staff proposes to update the zoning ordinance accordingly. Under state law, cities must allow ADUs in all multifamily zones. ADUs shall be permitted within portions of an existing multifamily dwelling structure that are not used as livable space. Up to 25% of the number of existing multifamily units in the building, but at least one unit shall be allowed. Previously, cities had the option to allow junior ADUs. However, now the state requires JADUs to be allowed in single-family homes. A junior accessory dwelling unit is defined as a unit that is no more than 500 square feet in size, includes an efficiency kitchen, is contained entirely within the walls of a single-family home, and may include separate sanitation facilities, or may share sanitation facilities with the single-family dwelling. JADUs do not require additional parking. In the fall of 2019, SB 234, related to family daycare homes, was signed into law. The objective of the legislation is to streamline the administration of child care licensing facilities to increase the supply of licensed child care homes. This legislation became effective on January 1st of 2020. Currently, large family daycare homes, which allow 7 to 14 children, require a non-discretionary conditional use permit in all residential zoning districts. Large family daycare homes must provide one additional parking space per employee and are subject to additional standards, such as a pick-up and drop-off plan and an outdoor play area. SB 234 relaxes many requirements associated with large family daycare homes by requiring cities to permit them by right in all residential districts. Additionally, SB 234 prevents cities from requiring additional on-site parking for employees or additional standards such as a pick-up and drop-off plan or outdoor play area. Staff is proposing to update affected code sections accordingly. Finally, staff proposes minor amendments to the Planned Community Permit section to clarify that the purpose of a Planned Community Permit is to allow for creative, innovative development within a context of defined community goals. The proposed amendments clarify that, in some cases, variations from the applicable precise plan standards may be granted, but in order for these variations to be granted, proposals must clearly demonstrate superior site and building design and comply substantially with the intent of the requirements in the applicable precise plan. EPC reviewed the proposed text amendments at the March 4th public hearing and unanimously recommended approval of the text amendment. In conclusion, staff recommends that Council approve the proposed text amendments. This concludes staff presentation, and we would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Great, thank you very much. We'll go to council questions. Are there any council members with questions? Please raise your hand. Councilmember Clark.
Yeah, I had two. And just so I understand, it looks like from the staff report, the short-term rental prohibitions, the primary difference is so state law prohibits short-term rentals in all detached ADUs under 800 feet, all junior ADUs, and all accessory dwelling units in multifamily zones that were submitted after January 1. It sounds like your staff is proposing to that it's basically all ADUs detached or attached. So the big difference that I noted there was attached, including attached. And so I'm just curious if you happen to know why the state exempted those. If we're going to include them, I'm just trying to figure out if the state had a reason for excluding attached from the short-term rental prohibition.
So we don't have the reason behind why the state is prohibiting it in ADUs under 800 square feet.
Okay. Okay, and then the second question, staff in looking at the ADUs as BMR units, I know that in the report you said you don't anticipate that a lending program will result in a significant amount of additional affordable units on an annual basis, but you can have an informal program. And so just looking ahead to Plan Bay Area 2050 and likely us needing quite a few probably housing allocation, especially in sort of the lower end of the spectrum in terms of AMI. I was just wondering if we had the ability to ramp up a lending program in the future, if we think it would help us meet those goals. Maybe not necessarily right now, but I'm just curious if that's something that we want to look at, if we should do it now or if we have the ability to spin that up later on once we get our RENA allocations and are trying to work through our housing element.
Yes, I would like to defer that question to our housing manager, Tim Wong, who I know is waiting in the wings, ready to participate.
Sorry, Tim.
Hi, so good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good evening. So there's always the possibility of having a lending program. However, because of the level of affordability we require for BMRs, right now with our BMR rental, it's about 65% AMI. There's quite a gap there. So I think the lending gap, I haven't done the math, but the gap between market rate and the 65% AMI, I think is pretty sizable. So it would have to be a fairly large loan program. I don't know if that is something that the council is interested in pursuing.
Okay. Yeah, I think I was less interested in spinning up a big administrative program, and just more interested in not tying our hands down the road if we realize that we're going to have a tough time meeting our arena numbers. But right, that's all I had. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We'll go on to Councilmember Ramirez.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to follow up on a couple of the responses to the written questions. So first, I want to make sure I understand what the state requires for junior ADUs. There are single-family homes that are constructed on properties that are now zoned R2 and R3. And while I understand in the future there could be a multi-family property on those lots, right now it's just a single-family home. And so I wanted to better understand why we wouldn't need to. And the other challenge too is that single-family home is a permitted use in R2, R3, and R4 districts. So I'm trying to understand why we're not also modifying the zoning code to allow junior ADUs in single-family homes on or in those districts.
So part of the answer it was included in the written responses, and that is correct. That if you are zoned R2 or R3 and you have a single-family home, you do have the opportunity to add units. And some of the addition of that is by right. And if you had a JADU with a recorded covenant on your property, it could prohibit you from then adding that additional density. The HCD also recommended that anything R2 and above in terms of multifamily zoning be kind of a limit in terms of what is considered multifamily for ADUs. as well as there is the provision, if you are an R2 or R3 and have a single-family home, you can still do a detached ADU as well as an internal conversion.
So I'm aware of an old single-family home on an R3 district that has what I'm guessing is probably an unpermitted JADU. So if it's, is that a legal non-conforming use, or how do we treat those kinds of junior ADUs?
So if there's an existing single-family home that has an unpermitted ADU of any kind in it, they could come in for a legal conversion of that, and it would depend on where the internalization of the JADU is. If it's in the garage or some other non-habitable portion of the home, that could be eligible to be converted to the ADU.
But if it's like an extension of the home itself, where it's physically connected to the rest of the house, and there's also an exterior door, would that be that there's no way to get that recognized as a legal ADU?
If it was in a multi-family district, no, we would not be able to.
Okay. And then for the setback issue, I guess I'm still sort of struggling with that. So you could have an attached ADU, but if you have a detached ADU, it has to be 10 feet away from any other structure within the property. And I'm not sure I fully understand why. And particularly too, if we're allowing detached ADUs to have to be sort of 4 feet away from the property line, there could be a detached ADU in the adjacent property. So you'd have 8 feet between the two under state law. So can you help me understand sort of what the intention behind the 10-foot interior setback is?
So the intention behind it was to be consistent with our existing detached accessory structure requirements, which do require 10 feet, and the major driving point behind that is fire and building code life safety separation. There is substantial cost and building modifications that need to be done to structures that are closer, especially if they're both habitable, in order to meet those fire ratings. So in an effort to make things easier for people and be consistent with our existing regulations, our recommendation was a 10-foot separation.
And I think the only other question was about the CRA district. So it sounds like the written response, it may be helpful to clarify that small and large family daycare is permitted in the CRA district. Not currently part of the staff recommendation. So if we wanted to include that clarification, should we incorporate that into whatever motion is made?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. We have Councilmember Matichak and then Councilmember McAllister.
Thank you. Just one question. And if you build an ADU in a multi-family structure, I see where it says the setbacks for the side and the rear, but I don't see, and I probably missed it, if there's any requirements in terms of the separation between the two different structures, similar to there in the previous section for single-family homes. So is there that 10-foot requirement in a multi-family structure if you're adding ADUs?
Yes, there would be for the detached structure.
So where is that? I was looking on the top of page 15 of attachment 1, sorry, and expected to see it there.
So we would defer to the accessory dwelling unit requirements that are in the table.
On page 14?
That's correct, yeah, starting on 13 and continuing on page 14.
Okay, so that covers, that's general ADU requirements.
That's correct.
Okay, got it. Thank you. That was it.
Councilmember McAllister and then Councilmember Hicks.
Yeah, thank you. So this seems like an interesting exercise, but it doesn't appear there was much discretion on part of staff. Was there? Or you just incorporated what they... Smiling there, Stephanie, yes. Was there much discretion?
There's not a lot of discretion given to us by these new legislation.
Okay. So if somebody takes we give amnesty to somebody, is that reported to the county assessor, and then they will start paying taxes, property taxes on these units if we allow them to bring it up to code?
Yes, any building permit that's done to a building division is reported to the county assessor, and they are assessed according to their practice.
So those who have illegal or non-conforming may just stick with their current deal and sort of lay low, save some property taxes, potentially?
They could, yes.
They could, okay. On the BMR, there was a discussion about restricted deed. Could you tell me a little bit about that restricted deed, how long it is, who can put it on, who can take it off? And what was the purpose of a restricted deed?
So the covenant that's required for a JADU is actually another requirement under state law. That wasn't something that we were proposing, but it is a requirement, and you would be required to record it prior to occupancy of the JADU. And if you were to remove the JADU, then you could remove the covenant associated with it.
So it's at the discretion of the owner?
That's correct.
And so what does that covenant do? What is the purpose behind it?
So the covenant runs with the land, and the intention of it is to explain that it is a separate ADU within the structure. And since it does run with the land, it would also both inform and limit future property owners that might buy that structure that has the JADU in it. It also sets the parameters.
So if a new owner wanted to buy that property and just take off the covenant, they could just do that?
Yeah, I mean the covenant does say you need permission of the city to remove it.
So if they, okay.
Councilmember McAllister, I think these are some questions we might have to get back to you on because, you know, we've thought about it and, you know, a lot of us are asking ourselves as cities. So as we find out more information about the implementation of these, we'll get back to you.
Okay. Parking. It sounds like the only way we can do anything about parking is put parking restrictions on the street.
We can't require parking for any of these units, but, you know, a residential parking program could go into effect, but it would also allow people living in the ADUs to get parking spaces, I would imagine.
Okay. I guess that's one of the, okay, so that was for comment. Now, on the 4-foot setback. Now, San Jose, did I read, or someone said that they have a 6-foot setback. Had that been put in place before the new state law come along? Or just
I'm not sure about San Jose's conformance with state law, but state law does prohibit setbacks greater for the side and rear than 4 feet.
So let's say we have a situation where we have new construction and somebody wants to build an ADU at the same time. And if the ADU allows a 4-foot setback, would the main house also get the main structure also get a 4-foot setback?
It would not. The main dwelling unit would need to follow the provisions of this one for setback.
Hey, thank you.
Councilmember Hicks and then Vice Mayor Tomei.
So other council members have asked most of my questions, thankfully. I did appreciate many of them, but Councilmember Clark's about the BMR. I agree that maybe that's something we should explore later. I have a simple question about amnesty. My leaning towards amnesty would be there would be good reasons to just let it be longer. For instance, if one was using the, say, a garage or any particular, an accessory unit or a part of the house as a teenage bedroom, it wouldn't need a kitchenette. And it might be more than the suggested amnesty before you wanted to convert that. So my preference would be to lengthen that period, but is there a good reason to keep it? Because I would hate to foreclose that on someone. But is there a good reason to make the amnesty period shorter, as suggested in the staff report?
So staff is recommending 5 years, which aligns with the state law for deferring enforcement on illegal ADUs. So it was really meant to align those two. If council wanted to extend the non-state component of that, which is related to the building permit fees and the building permit processing timelines, that is something that you could direct staff to do. But in terms of the non-enforcement, that is dictated by state law.
I'll jump in and just answer the second part of it, which is many of these ADUs that are illegal sometimes have structural and life safety issues. And we feel like 5 years is a good enough timeline, but we don't want to be in a position where the city knows and there's sort of an indeterminate amount of time where somebody's living in that unit. And 5 years we feel is a good period of time to allow the person to bring it under, sort of correct.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Great, thank you. I also had a question about the amnesty program. I think for some of the things brought up in the staff report, there was a council question related to, what would be the administrative burden on something like a ADU BMR program. I was wondering, when it comes to the amnesty program, if we went with the 5 years, what that might look like for staff in terms of workload and getting that up and running, and could share a little bit more with us.
Stephanie, maybe you can share about workload and what it would mean in terms of fees.
Sure. So ADU permits are done ministerially as building permits, so those can come in anytime they like. So in terms of administrating the amnesty program, I don't think that would be any extra work on staff's part. It would just be, a matter of calculating fees and processing the permit. So administratively, it wouldn't be a burden on staff.
Great, thank you. That's it.
Any other questions from council members? I had one, going back to the covenant for affordable housing. I was trying to understand what the benefit would be to deed restrict.
The benefit of deed restricting an ADU would be assuring that it would be affordable in perpetuity as per our BMR requirements, having it affordable to a household who earns no more than 65% AMI, if that would be the direction the council would want to go. I think that would be the benefit, just an affordable unit in perpetuity.
I'm sorry, I guess I should have added, for the owner of the property, is there some kind of tax benefit or some other benefit that the property owner would from that?
They could be assessed, for the ADU, they could be assessed at a lower rate since it is deed restricted, as many of our BMR ownership units are assessed at a lower rate, so that could be a potential financial benefit to the homeowner.
Okay, great. Thank you. Councilman McAllister, do you have some questions?
Yeah, Tim, so just follow up on the mayors, and that's what I was asking earlier. You use the word perpetuity for the unit. Well, what if they sell the property? Can that covenant come off? Or you say once it's built, it's there in perpetuity?
The BMR agreement or the BMR restrictions run with the land, so it would not terminate at change of ownership. It is with the land.
And so when the new owner takes over this property, they said, okay, I agree to this perpetuity agreement. And have you seen many people do this willingly? On the ADU level, no, but I would just equate it, for example, if you had an apartment complex with some BMR units and it changes from one owner to another, that is a factor in the sale when the property is sold. Okay, but the only difference is that you're dealing with a single family's primary residence, and then you attach the single unit, which may not be compatible as the families change dynamics, and that's.
Councilmember McAllister, this was actually suggested by the EPC as a potential program for people who want to voluntarily, have the ADUs be listed as BMRs. But you're right. One need not be listed. One might choose to rent it at a low rate. So we don't see a whole lot of takers for this program, but it's the beginning of a framework. And say there's city money in helping them, there might be some strings attached. It might look a little different. So we're not proposing a program at this time, but just starting to discuss elements of it.
Okay, thank you. That was helpful.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from council members? If not, I'll open this up for public comment. If there are any members participating through Zoom in the attendee box who would like to speak on this item, please hit the raise hand button at the bottom. I don't see any. So, City Clerk, do we have any other public comment?
No other public comment received after 5 p.m. and no voicemails for this item. And I don't have anyone signed up to speak. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So I'll close public comment and bring it back for council discussion and a motion. Councilmember Ramirez.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to make it easier to understand me, I'll try turning the video up. So, I support the staff recommendation. There are a couple of tweaks that I would be supportive of if other members of the council support them. The first is including small and large family daycare as permitted uses in the CRA district. I think that aligns more closely with the requirement in state law. And and then the others are probably a little bit more challenging. So just to answer Councilmember McAllister's question about San Jose, the modifications were made last year in response to state law, and they adopted a 6-foot interior setback. So they're complying with state law on the 4 feet, but the 6-foot setback pertains to between structures in the interior of the property. And if other members of the council support something less than 10 feet, I would support that as well. I think it's consistent with the direction that the state law is sort of pushing us towards, just to make it a little bit easier. And particularly if there happen to be unpermitted ADUs in properties, I'm going to support the amnesty program. And what I want to do is make it easier for folks to come forward and make sure that their properties are in compliance. If we have restrictions that sort of de facto make it impossible for these folks to comply, they're not going to participate in the amnesty program. So I do think looking at the interior setback would make sense. And again, if other members of the council support it. And the last thing would be the junior ADU issue for single-family homes in R2 and R3 districts. If nobody else is supportive, I'm fine with the staff recommendation. But it's similar, where there are existing single-family homes in those districts, particularly those that may have unpermitted JADUs, at the very least in the zoning code saying, in these districts where single-family homes exist and no other types of residential structures, junior ADUs are permitted. And if you do something other than a single-family home, then you would not be able to have a junior ADU. But all of this would be just sort of with the intention of getting folks to comply with the law. And where the law doesn't allow them to, we can reasonably anticipate that those folks will not comply. But fundamentally, very comfortable with the staff recommendation. I know some of those things are probably not going to happen, but at the very least, the CRA district issue for small and large family daycare, that's one of the changes I'd like to see incorporated into the motion. Thank you. That's all.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Matichak.
Thank you. So I'm happy to second the motion. I agree with staff's recommendation, and I'm okay with including the small and large family daycare in the CRA districts. The other items that Councilmember Ramirez brought up, I'm okay actually with the staff recommendation, but I do support the one addition you made. So if that's okay with you, I'll second that motion.
I didn't make a motion, but if you'd like me to, I'm happy to move the staff recommendation with that one modification.
Oh, I thought you made the motion. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I'm happy to make it.
Okay.
Great. So there is a motion on the floor from Councilmember Ramirez, seconded by Councilmember Matichak, and we have Councilmember Clark.
I was just going to say I don't know if we need to read this, and if so, Christian might need to provide the wording.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Councilmember Clark. The motion would properly be the introduction of the ordinance language, which is in the caption, in the recommendation. It's also the title of the ordinance. And then with the addition to modify the commercial land use table to include small and large family daycare homes as permitted in the CRA district. So the maker of the motion should read the title of the ordinance plus that phrase.
Should I do so now or after all of the comments from council members?
Let me take Councilmember Hicks, and then if you can repeat the motion, that'd be great. Councilmember Hicks?
Well, mine is in some ways to repeat the motion, I think. I just wanted to be, I thought that I supported everything that you said, all the changes you made, Councilmember Ramirez, but I wasn't, you said one change on the ADUs, and I heard it as several. So I'd like you to repeat that so I'm clear on what you're proposing.
Okay, Councilmember Ramirez, if you could repeat your motion, appreciate it.
Sure. So I move to, and I hope I'm looking at the right language here, introduce an ordinance amending sections of Chapter 36, zoning ordinance of the City Code to update accessory dwelling unit and home-based child care regulations to align with new state regulations and modifications to planned community permit regulations to be read in title only, further reading waived, and set a second reading for May 12, 2020. And also the modification pertaining to small and large family kind of care homes, allowing that as a permitted use in the CRA zoning district.
That's correct.
Great, thank you. And so seconded by Councilmember Matichak. We have more discussion. Councilmember McAllister.
Yeah, I find it sort of ironic that the city is working to get vehicles off the street, and we're increasing our neighborhood parking districts, and now it's being overruled by the state government. So we're trying to do one thing and make it better, and the state's making it a little worse for us, or harder to make it. So I'm supporting the motion, but it's just it's tough to run a city that maintains a quality of life standard different than the state and other communities. And I'm disappointed that we have to give up our council responsibilities to deal with what the silent majority doesn't do. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this item? If not,
just one clarification for staff. So this does include the amnesty program, right? Which is not part of the zoning code, but a separate program that staff is recommending. Is that right?
Well, we were looking to council to get some direction on that. As confirmation, and that is something we did want to move forward with, and confirmation on the duration.
Okay, and if it's okay with the seconder, I'd like to include the 5-year amnesty program as recommended by staff.
I agree with that. And I also agree with Councilmember McAllister's comments. I believe the EPC also raised concern about parking issues. But yes, Councilmember Ramirez, I agree with your including that. I just kind of assumed it was. Sorry.
great. Thank you for that clarification. Any other discussion on this item? If not, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Hicks.
Yes.
Councilmember Matichak.
Yes.
Councilmember McAllister.
Yes.
Councilmember Ramirez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kamei.
Yes.
Mayor Abikoga.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries 7-0 with no abstentions. Thank you very much. And I would like to continue on to new business. Item 7, 7.1, adopt resolutions governing employee compensation and benefits for all bargaining groups. I don't read the rest of it. All employees. And I have Assistant City Manager and Chief Operating Officer Audrey Seymour Ramberg presenting. That's correct. Welcome.
The screen. You're not hearing me. Are you able to hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you are on. Very good. Thank you. I'm now sharing my screen.
My apologies for the delay. Madam Mayor, members of the council, I am representing our HR team, presenting to you labor agreements. I'm joined on the line by our Human Resources Manager, Sue Rush, and Senior Human Resources Analyst, Lizzie Bishop. Agreements for all employees are expiring in June, which require us to bring forward replacement agreements now, unfortunately, in the midst of our current emergency. Fortunately, we had already begun the process of negotiations and were able to quickly reach a shared interest with the employee groups to narrow the scope of the discussion. This is what made sense in light of the impacts of the COVID-19 emergency. And those impacts were both on the time of our emergency responders and our management team who were focused on essential services, and also the impacts on the city's finances. In light of the current fiscal uncertainty, we are bringing forward an agreement for 1 year only and addressing only a limited number of items. This agreement does include a COLA, which achieves the city's interest of providing the community with exceptional service going forward, just as we are seeing now in the emergency response for COVID-19. The cost of this COLA has been built into the fiscal year 2020-21 expenses that will come forward as part of a balanced budget in June. I'm now going to summarize for you the terms for employee groups, and I will be making distinctions between our safety and or sworn employees, as they are known, and our non-sworn or miscellaneous employees. Just as a reminder for the council and the public, sworn employees are those that provide emergency response services in our fire department and police department, and those are made up of the groups of our Police Officers Association, our International Association of Firefighters, and the unrepresented fire managers, including the fire chiefs, and the unrepresented police managers, including the police chief. The non-sworn group is made up of our SEIU bargaining group, the non-sworn members of the Police Officers Association, the Eagles group, as well as the unrepresented confidential employees and the unrepresented department heads. So focusing first on the non-sworn employees, for all of the members in all of those different groups that I mentioned, the agreement calls for a 3% cost of living adjustment, and in addition, a one-time allotment of leave hours in the amount of 21 hours. There's a cleanup item with regard to pension cost share for members of the pension plan that are in Terra, such that the total employee contribution stays at the current agreed-upon levels. There is an additional item for SEIU, non-sworn, POA, and Eagles, which will discontinue cost share for PEPRA employees when annual incomes reach the CalPERS annual compensation limit. Moving on to the terms for the sworn employees, for all of the employees in those groups, their agreement is for a 4% cost of living adjustment and one-time leave hours in the amount of 42 hours for employees who are on 40-hour work shifts, and then 59 hours for employees who are on a 56-hour shift schedule. In addition, for the POA and IAFF members, the same term referred to on the prior slide that limits cost share or stops it at the point that the CalPERS annual income limit is reached is in place for POA, sworn, and IAFF. In addition, we bring forward at the same time terms for our hourly employees who are also unrepresented, and that includes the same 3% COLA for the miscellaneous classifications and a 4% COLA for those classifications that are tied to sworn safety positions. And then the same adjustments previously mentioned around the PEPRA pension cost share where applicable, would apply to the hourly employees, and there are only a few of those that actually are CalPERS members, and usually that's because they came to the city already as members of the CalPERS system. Wrapping up, the final provisions are to recognize exceptional COVID service, and the first item is to provide authority to the city manager to be able to make individual awards to employees in any classification in the city in recognition of exceptional performance in excess of their regular hours and regular duties in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Similar authority already exists for the city manager to have the potential to provide such recognition to department heads, and this authority would extend that authority to the city manager to be able to do that for other classifications as well. And then finally, in recognition of the need for the city's leadership team to be accessible at all times and working remotely, the proposal is for an increase in the cell phone allowance by $15 per month and an increase in management leave by 24 hours. As I mentioned, the cost of the proposed compensation package will be presented as part of a balanced budget when that comes to council in June. And just for reference, the cost for the general fund for the COLAs is approximately $3.5 million, and across all funds it would be approximately $4 million. So all funds would be the general fund plus the enterprise funds, the development services fund, and so forth. To provide more information about the city's fiscal condition and how, while we are certainly being impacted by the COVID virus, there are a pandemic and emergency, the city's diverse revenue base is going to help the organization weather this disruption, and more information about that will be provided by the city manager in her financial update to the council next Tuesday. With that, I will conclude my remarks and am available for questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from council members? Don't see any. So then I will open this up for public comment. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak? If you are in the attendee box, please press the raise hand button. I don't see anyone, so I'll ask the city clerk, are there any other members of the public wishing to speak?
Mayor, I do have one email that was received after 5 p.m. that I'll go ahead and read into the record. This is from Serge Bont. Honorable Mayor and City Council, in normal times and even more so in light of the pandemic, city employees should be recognized and rewarded for their great service they provide to our community. Alas, we're not in normal times, and many cities around us, Menlo Park, Palo Alto, are already debating which services to cut. While it's heartening to read that quote, although there are impacts to the city's financial status, the city is fortunate to have a diverse revenue base and currently projects to be able to weather the current economic disruption, end quote. There is no indication of how nor at what cost. Since a fiscal update is planned for next week, May 5th, it would seem more prudent to table this agenda item to May 12th in order to better assess if the city can afford these otherwise well-deserved raises. Sincerely, Serge Bont, Mountain View resident. And that's the only email that I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So close public comment and bring it back to council. Any discussion? I don't see anyone. I just wanted to mention or make some comments. I know these are unusual times, and the situation had to do with timing, but I want to thank staff for working hard to bring agreement fairly quickly on this matter. I believe that we have been very mindful of the economic situation that we are expecting to face. It is a one-year deal. In usual cases, we would probably be coming to a longer term. but because of the situation, we we reached agreement to keep it to 1 year. And I know we always have critics, frankly, when we do this, but I would say our staff has been working extremely hard, especially now. Just because they're city employees doesn't mean that they don't face the same challenges as everyone else is in terms of economic uncertainty. So we have worked hard. We will do the budget next week, but we have a preview. We've been all informed that we should be balanced, have a balanced budget, and as mentioned, part of that is because we've had a very fiscally prudent organization for a very long time, and during the last Great Recession, when we did have to look at cuts or deficits or ways to save money, we asked our employee groups to help us, and they did. And so in light of the history that we have, and I think we are unique right now, other cities around us, and I know that one of the papers mentioned Palo Alto, they face a $30 million deficit. Other cities are facing deficits, so we are in a fortunate situation where we will be able to balance our budget for the upcoming year. And so in light of that, I think we've reached a good balance in rewarding our employees for the work and service they've done, and for as much as we can predict our economic financial situation, and being able to balance the budget. I feel that this is important for us to approve these agreements. So with that, I see Councilmember Clark's hand up.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion, but first I'll just echo the mayor's comments. I think I know it's important to understand a couple of things. One is that this is a 1 year agreement, and I think we would. This gives us the opportunity, one, to recognize our employees for all that they've done and they are doing and will continue to do. It also gives us the time that we need to assess the long-term impact of the situation on the city's fiscal well-being, so that we can sort of better negotiate a longer-term agreement, hopefully next year. As the mayor has and others have pointed out many times, we are unique in that we not only that we have diverse revenue streams, and we've been very fiscally prudent over the years, but we have good relationships with our employee groups, and they have recognized in prior downturns, especially the really significant one in 2008, the city's position and they've been very willing to work with us. And so I think from my perspective, this is a way of everyone coming together to ensure that we have an extra period of time where everyone has some stability, and we have the ability to assess the long-term impacts of this on the city's fiscal condition. And I have no doubt that next year, when we're at the negotiating table, that everyone will work together in good faith to come up with a longer-term agreement that works for everyone, because we want to do right not only by our taxpayers but by our employees as well. And with that, also thank you, Audrey, Sue, and everyone who worked to get this agreement in place in very short order, and had to sort of do a 180 in the middle of all this when everything sort of crept up in terms of timing. And thank you again to our employee groups who were willing to give us the extra time that we needed to sort of assess how everything shakes out over the next 9 to 12 months. So with that, I'll move that we adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager or her designee to amend the Memorandum of Understanding between the Eagles and the City of Mountain View for the period July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 to be read in title only, further reading waived. 2, that we adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager or her designee to amend the Memorandum of Understanding between the International Association of Firefighters, Local 1965, and the City of Mountain View for the period of July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 to be read in title only, further reading waived. 3, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager or her designee to amend the memorandum of understanding between the Mountain View Police Officers Association and the City of Mountain View for the period July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 to be read in title only, further reading waived. Or adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager or her designee to amend the memorandum of understanding between the Service Employees International Union Local 521 and the City of Mountain View for the period July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 to be read in title only, further reading waived. 5, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager or designee to modify compensation for unrepresented confidential employees, fire managers, police managers, department heads, council appointees, and hourly employees for the period of July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 to be read in title only, further reading waived. And 6, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to provide recognition to employees for their exceptional performance during the COVID-19 pandemic emergency to be read in title only, further reading waived.
Thank you, and thank you for reading all of that. Councilmember Matichak, is this a second?
It is a second, and I just want to add that I appreciate your comments, Mayor Abekoga, and those of Councilmember Clark, and I agree with them, so I'm happy to second this.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion on this item? If not, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Hicks.
Yes.
Councilmember Matichak.
Yes.
Councilmember McAllister.
Yes.
Councilmember Ramirez. Vice Mayor Kamei.
Yes.
Mayor Abekoga.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0 with no abstentions. Thank you very much. We'll move on to our last major item, item 7.2, policy on the discontinuation of residential water service for non-payment in compliance with the Water Shutoff Protection Act, SB 998. And I don't have the listing of who is presenting, so if the presenter would, it's our Finance Director, Jesse Takahashi. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Abekoga and council members. As you mentioned, I'm Jesse Takahashi, the city's Finance and Administrative Services Director. The item before you tonight is a request to formally adopt the policy via resolution and introduce an ordinance amendment in order to implement the provisions of Senate Bill 998, also known as the Water Shutoff Protection Act. And let's see if I can this up here. Are you able to see the presentation? Okay. Okay. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. So, SB 998 was signed into law in September of 2018 and became effective February 1 of this year for many providers and April 1st for others. It was meant to provide additional protections for those that are unable to pay their water utility bill by providing additional time to pay before being shut off, as well as requiring water utilities to provide additional options for making payment arrangements. It applies to residential customers only, requires a written policy, and prohibits urban and community water suppliers from shutting off water to an account for at least 60 days from the time a bill is considered delinquent. There are a number of requirements and provisions that are detailed in the proposed policy, which is Exhibit A to your attachment number 1. I will broadly summarize the requirements of this bill. Policy contains the city contact information, and by the way, I just wanted to point out the email address in your packet was had a typo in there. So the correct email address is revenuestaff@mountainview.gov, and that will be corrected in the final copy of the resolution. So aside from basic contact information that's required, it is also required to be translated into 5 different languages other than English, plus any languages that are spoken at least by 10% of the people in our service area. For us, in this case, that would be Russian. In addition to the minimum 60-day delinquent requirement, the city must try to reach a customer by phone or in writing to discuss various options for averting water shutoff, including any deferral or possible amortization of payments, petitioning for a bill review, or an appeal. If the city is unable to reach the customer, the city must make a good faith effort to visit the residence and leave proper notice at the residence of the impending shutoff, as well as a copy of the shutoff policy. SB 998 prohibits water shutoff for any customers where a certification of a primary care provider states a shutoff could pose a serious health threat to a resident at that premise, a financial hardship exists, and the customer is willing to enter into a payment arrangement. The city is required to provide information regarding what is required to restore service as well. If the customer household can demonstrate that it meets low-income criteria, then the city is going to be limited to charging up to $50 for reconnect during normal business hours or $150 in the off hours. Where a tenant-landlord relationship exists and the occupants of residents are not the account owners, the city has to provide written notice to the residents there of the impending shutoff, as well as give them notice how they can become a separate customer without any obligation for paying a delinquent bill. And then the city also, lastly, has reporting requirements annually on its website, as well as to the State Board of Water Resources with respect to the number of residential service disconnects or shutoffs due to non-payment. Along with the policy adoption, an ordinance amendment is also needed in order to ensure the proper implementation of this bill. It's scheduled. This ordinance is being introduced tonight, and it would be scheduled for final adoption at the next regular meeting, which is currently scheduled for May 12th. The ordinance would then be effective 30 days after it's adopted. And finally, these are our recommendations being requested in order to implement the provisions of SB 998. And this concludes the presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from council members? I don't see any. So then I'll open up public comment. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak? If you're in the attendee box, please hit the raise hand button. I don't see anyone, so I will close. I'm sorry, I should go to the city clerk. Are there any other members of the public?
No emails received after 5 p.m., and I don't have anyone signed up to speak. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Then I'll close public comment and bring it back to council. Councilmember McAllister?
Yes, after a great discussion we just had, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution establishing a policy on the discontinuance of residential water service for non-payment, implementing Senate Bill 998 to be read in title only, further reading waive, attachment 1 to the council report, and to introduce an ordinance amending Chapter 35 of the City Code relating to discontinuation of water service for non-payment to be read in title only, further reading waive, and set second reading for May 12, 2020, attachment 2 to the council report.
Thank you. Councilmember Marichak, is this the second?
It is. I'll second that motion.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other discussion on this item? If not, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Hicks.
Yes.
Councilmember Matichek.
Yes.
Councilmember McAllister.
Yes.
Councilmember Ramirez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kamei.
Yes.
Mayor Abikoga.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries 7-0 with no abstentions. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 8, Council Staff Committee Reports. Are there any council members wishing to give a report? Vice Mayor.
Great. I just wanted to share that the Council Youth Subcommittee met today at 4 p.m. Related to youth wellness, youth mental health. And we'll be have a couple follow-ups. We had members of CHAC, Los Altos School District, MDLA, and looking forward to the next conversation where we'll have more community partners and school districts present to continue the item. That's it.
Great, thank you. Councilor Matichak.
Thank you. I just want to report on my attendance at the Santa Clara County Airport Land Use Commission meeting, where actually we weighed in on whether or not San Jose's changes to their zoning ordinance were consistent or inconsistent with the airport, the comprehensive land use plans for the airports in Santa Clara County. And it's the changes for ADU and tiny homes and the things we discussed earlier tonight. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other council members wishing to speak? I would just report that, as mentioned earlier, last Thursday we had our virtual town hall meeting. We had over 200 people signed up, so it was, I thought, quite successful. We had Congresswoman Eshoo reporting from D.C. after she had just taken the vote on the stimulus package. A lot of questions about when we're opening, masks. Some of the issues are with, a lot of them are frankly probably county related. We're following the county order, so I think we're trying to describe or explain the differences between city and county. But overall, I thought it was a good event, and thank you. I saw some of you on the list of attendees, so I appreciate your participation too. And I also wanted to mention that I'd been in conversations with Councilmember Liz Nuss in Palo Alto, who has a public health background, and so she's been very concerned about the availability or lack thereof of testing, as that was one of the requirements for the shelter-in-place order to be lifted. And so we've been talking, and we expanded the conversation to North County cities. So on Friday we had a discussion facilitated by our Cities Association, ED, which included Sunnyvale, Mountain View, Palo Alto, Los Altos, and Los Altos Hills. And a lot of it, I think the conclusion is, well, there's just a lot of questions that we have about how to get more testing sites up and what the challenges are to doing that. So we agreed to send a letter to the county asking for more information to answer our questions. So I signed on to that letter along with, we ended up expanding it to all 15 cities, and 9 mayors have signed on to that letter. So the hope is that we will get more information and our questions asked. So if there is opportunity to put up more testing sites and there's something the cities can help in doing that, we would definitely like to know what that is. Anything else from council members, staff? If not, City Attorney, is there a closed session report?
There is no closed session report tonight.
Great, thank you. So then we will adjourn this meeting at 8:34, and the next City Council meeting is scheduled to be held on Tuesday, May 5th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Thank you very much, and have a good evening. Take care.
Thank you.